Okay, so today we're going to be looking at some jazz tunes, and I think I'm going to start doing more of these kind of analysis of these tunes, kind of like "There Will Never Be Another You." That one we did. So today we're going to look at "Take the A Train," which is pretty popular standard that a lot of high school bands play, and the changes are pretty easy to navigate, and it's just a good learning tool for uh, all of us, even me. So we're gonna look into it, look at what changes are, and we're gonna play along with it a little bit and see what happens. Okay, so Take the A Train is in concert C major, so it's easy to look at the changes. It's for everybody because everyone's pretty much familiar with that key signature, C major. So let's just look at the melody and see what kind of the melody does. So first you got the melody right here on a fifth, on the fifth. Um, and then it kind of does this jump pattern. This is a motif that's common throughout this tune is these sixth. See, here it is again, that sixth jump right there, right there, right there. Dee da 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 dee da dee da dee da. Oh, I hate that clock. I gotta get rid of it. Right? So we got that sixth interval that is present throughout um, the tune, and so let's look at the changes a little bit. First, you have a C major seven. Obviously, that's your concert or your tonic chord. There it goes. No, I don't want this thing. Okay, sorry. C major seven for 2 bars, and then you have this D7 right here, and I've actually seen this as a D7, like sharp 11, I think. Yeah, I think I've seen this as D7 sharp 11 too, but for the purposes of this, I guess they're just doing good old D7. So, well, how does that work? First of all, what does that do? What does that make the improviser have to do? So here we've just got our normal C major 7, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? But then this D, see, yeah. It's not exactly a D7. This second chord here is actually, it's not sharp 11, no, it is sharp 11. Yeah, I was right the first time. Yeah, this is D7 sharp 11 because this G sharp is the sharp 11 of this D7. So the 11 is also known as the 4, right? So the fourth degree of the scale of D7 is G, and then sharp is G sharp. So this should be, let me write that down on here. D7 sharp 11. That was terrible. This is so terrible. Let's try this again. Sharp. Sharp 11. There we go. So that's D7 sharp 11 because of the G sharp. So again, what does it make the improviser have to do? Well, it makes the improviser have to play this G sharp right here, where you normally play a D natural if you were just in diatonic chords. So this is not a diatonic chord. It's okay. You could say this is mode mixture, but it's not really. I mean, it kind of is, and you could say that this is like a temporary tonicization of the 5 chord, so it's a 5 of 5. But there's no 5; it just goes to a normal 2-5-1, which is actually it's a pretty common move because that D7 move to the D minor 7 is a pretty common sound. So a lot of times with these kind of songs, the composers will have this chord where instead of it being it, think about it, the root is a diatonic note in the scale. So in this case, D obviously is a diatonic note in C. It's not out of the scale, so it's not out of the key signature, right? But the quality of the chord is different. And so a lot of times they'll do that, and that kind of creates a little bit of tension, even though it still technically fits. That's the best way I could see, like theory-wise, what that is. I mean, that's kind of mode mixture, kind of, but it doesn't really function exactly as a dominant chord because of the sharp 11. It kind of just sits on its own. So again, that makes the improviser, all you really have to think about, you don't have to think about all that when you're improvising. All you have to think about is, okay, C major 7 going to D7. So all you D7 sharp 11. So what do you have to play? So you have to play your F. You have to play, the only notes that are different are F sharp and G sharp. So play every other note in this scale and add G sharp and F sharp, and you'll hit that D7 sharp 11. So that's the big pivot point in this tune that everybody knows, and if you don't hit it, you're not doing it right. Right, and then over here it just goes to 2-5-1, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Oh my gosh, such a, whoa, right? So D minor 7, G7, C major 7, and then it just does it again. This one bar, it just goes 2-5-1 back to that, and then the A section repeats, right? This is an AABA form tune, which means, first 8 bars, second 8 bars, and fourth 8 bars are the same, and the third 8 bars, the B section is different. So, excuse me, right? So let's just hear like what that sounds like on the backing track here. One chord, sharp 11, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5 here, 2. Okay. So that's the first 8 bars of that. Fairly simple, not anything too ridiculous. Again, the only thing you really need to do if you want to really sound like you're playing in the changes is F sharp and G sharp right here. And I'm talking in concert pitch, so you guys are going to have to transpose that. But concert, F sharp and G sharp. So the only thing that's really different about the second A section is this bar right here. This bar. So what's that bar? So that bar is a 2-5. Let me put this down here so you guys can actually see it. Oh, and then it moves the circle. What? No, we don't want that. Okay, never mind. So this bar right here, bar 15. Or no. Yeah, bar 15. That is a 2-5 of the 4 chord. So what's the 4 chord in C major? I'll give you a minute. That's right, it's F. 2-5 is F. Okay? Or not 2-5. The 4 chord is F. So a lot of times when they pivot to like, this is basically temporarily tonicizing F. So we're like, these 4 bars are technically in F now. So they do a 2-5 in F to kind of establish that change. And so now you just have 4 bars of F major 7. So easy. All you have to do for this is add a B flat, right? Because in C, there's B natural, but there's not a B flat. We want to add a B flat right here in order to get that F major 7 sound, or over here, right? So G minor 7, C7, these both have B flats in them. You want to play the B flat because that'll establish, okay, now we're in F. right? So now just play an F major 7 for 4 bars. Easy. Now here, these last 4 bars of the bridge, the B section is sometimes called the bridge, you have kind of the same thing like up here, kind of, but not in a sense that this is not a sharp 11. This is just a normal D7, right? And so this is a pretty good pivot point too to try to use that F sharp again, because the main difference between obviously F major 7 and D7 is that you're playing an F natural here, obviously, and then you're playing an F sharp because it's a D7 chord. So you're playing a D or a F sharp right there, and that's going to establish that. Obviously, the other thing you need to do is not play B flat, play B natural, but that's all you need to do, right? So play, B natural and F sharps right there. Let me get rid of this sharp 11 nonsense. I don't know why in this version they don't mark it sharp 11, because it's obviously sharp 11 as you can see it, but whatever. And then the last A is just the same as all the other ones. And then there's the little Duke Ellington, the famous Duke Ellington tag at the end that you can play. You don't have to. People don't. Some people do, some people don't, But we've all heard it, so it's kind of fun. So that's kind of what this tune's really about. And that's really the way I would look at this. If I was going to look at the tune, you when you're like first looking at a tune, a lot of times, it's easy to just like be like, I don't know what to do, because you're improvising all these changes you've never seen, or you don't know how they go together. But if you just take the time for 5 minutes to look at it and see like, where are these points where I need to play something different, and that's how you really sound like you're playing within the changes, even though you may not 100% know how to play over them. Know that every single little theoretical thing that goes on in them, you still can play, because okay, if I know I have to play a G sharp right here and I have to play an F sharp down here and all that, everything else is pretty much diatonic, so you can kind of get by. So that's what I would do if I was going to play this tune. So let me play a chorus of this tune so you can get a sense for maybe like how somebody would do it. The only thing I don't like about these Learn Jazz Standards tracks is that they're so quiet. I hate that. You can hardly hear the pulse at all, and I get thrown off. But, they're pretty good if you can put it in Audacity and put the gain up a little bit, then you can hear it, but I don't have the time for that. And so right here, remember I'm trying to emphasize those F sharps and G sharps. Right there, obviously trying to get that F sharp in. Trying to make this transition is another big one. This G minor 7 sees an F major 7. That transition to the 4 is a big sound. And so it's easy to just forget that you have to do that. But if you make that a point, then you're like, okay, now I'm going to the bridge right now. And it makes the audience feel like, oh, that guy knows what changes are. So I don't know. Let me get into some other stuff here. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about like playing 2/5s in any kind of 2/5, but especially, I mean, just any 2/5 in this tune. Um, a sound that I like is playing the flat 9 here. That's a super common jazz uh, kind of thing to do. You're basically playing G7 flat 9 instead of G7. So, what does a flat 9 mean though? The flat 9 is basically a half step above the root of this chord. So, a half step above G is A flat. So, you're basically playing A flats and into the C major 7. And it voice leads well because the flat 9 voice leads right into the 5, the fifth degree of C major 7, G, right? A flat to G. And that's a super common phrase that that a lot of jazz guys use, and it's easy for me to use because I know what the flat 9 is, so I can just transpose into every key, and I don't have to think about it. Another big thing about 2/5s is that don't think of this as like this bar, this bar, this bar. Think of it as like all one giant thing, so that every time you see a 2/5, you don't have to actually literally read every single chord, right? It's just like, when you're reading a book, you don't read a book like word for word and sentence, or letter by letter and word by word, and like, no, nobody does that, and that'd be stupid. So what you do is you read sentences, and you read this word and this word and this word, and it becomes a sentence and it's an idea. Well, it's the same thing going on here. You don't just read D minor 7, G minor, G7, C7. You read that as 2/5/1 in C, which means you don't even have to look at it anymore. You already know, and if you already have enough language to play over 2/5s, which you should, because that's the backbone of like every jazz song ever, then it's easy. You don't even have to look at it. You can just go, right? I just basically played this, like the second A section into the 4 chord, and part of it is because I memorized this tune. I learned it a while ago and I know it, but also because I know that, well, okay, if this is a 2/5, I know what to play over that. I don't have to look at it. This whole section I don't even have to think about because I know what it is already. If that makes any sense. And that just comes from practice and practice and practice and practice. So let's get back to the flat 9. So flat 9's a big sound that I like. It's this sound, if you were hearing me do it. Right, that, that A flat, my B flat is the flat 9, and then that just voice leads right into the G. You can kind of hear how that is a good extension to use, because it just follows. I mean, it basically highlights the diminished chord anyway, which is a strong dominant sound, even stronger dominant sound than just the dominant 7 chord. So that's good. And over the D minor 7 play, a lot of times they'll go, guys will go from like, like Michael Brecker did this a lot, where he would play just over a 2/5. He'd play, like, let's say in my D, which is what this is in concert C, but in my D, he just play E minor. He'd just go a nice, diatonic E minor, and then he'd do some ridiculously altered dominant chord where every single alteration you could possibly do is done. Oh, Jesus, excuse me, is done to it, and then he just lands on the right note and it sounds awesome. So it would kind of be like this. Diatonic E minor, and then every single thing is altered, and then he somehow lands back on it, which I think like that's one of my most favorite thing about Michael Brecker is that like how is he able to do that? It sounds so cool, but it's so outside, but it's not. And yeah, so possibilities, man, are endless. You can just do anything. I mean, you could, as long as you, I mean, honestly, as long as you land on this, then go to town, do whatever. Like you can even do something like this over that. I mean, I was playing like every single wrong note, and it still sounded cool because I was able to land on the right spot. And then there's, all these different ways you can do it. You can do it by repeating a melodic line in all these different keys or stuff like that. As long as you land on that, I mean, it can sound as out as you want, really. And all of these, too. All these other 2/5s, you can do the same thing. And that's for every 2/5 in any tune, And that's why you really need to learn your 2/5 1s in all your keys, because then, I mean, you can almost play any tune as long as you know your 2/5s. You just put them together and splice them together in places, and you don't even have to think about it. So yeah, that's Take the A Train. It's a pretty, it's easy. It's not something that's really, really difficult. But if you guys can now go home and practice this tune. This is a really cool tune. So, and then look up this backing track here on YouTube and maybe do a video of it and maybe put it on the Google Classroom and all that stuff. So, all right, I will see you in the next one. Thanks.